was quite the presentation. This is a breaking news live stream, which means that the majority of your questions and comments will be addressed in the Q&A section at the very end. I have tons of visuals for you, which is why I'm a few minutes late, because I was busy putting together this presentation. I got my own presentation. I'm going to boil it down for you, what was discussed, and give my thoughts on it. So yes, it's official. As I had tweeted, hold on, let's see here. As I had tweeted in August of last year, I had tweeted that HBO Max was going to go away as you know it, and HBO would become a tab. At the time, I had thought on Discovery Plus, but now it's on a new service called Max, which was introduced today. And so that became, and a lot of, and David Zaslav, had said at the time that was not going to be the case, and it ended up happening today. That's exactly what happened. HBO will be a premium tab, which means it's going to be at the very top of the streaming service starting May 23rd when this new service launches. It's called Max, the one to watch. Get that subliminal message. This is the only one that you need. And we'll see if that's the case. I will say that at the end of the day, I still feel that it has no real identity. Max doesn't sound any different than, it still doesn't give you an idea of where you're going. I think we all felt it should have been called Warner Brothers Discovery, or, Warner Brothers Plus, WBD Plus. I think that, Max just kind of sounds like a discount brand. It sounds more like Discovery than it does HBO or Warner Brothers. However, Discovery Plus claims that it is the more successful streaming service. That's why, in fact, Discovery Plus is remaining untouched, whereas all of the Discovery Plus content will also be rolled into Max. Max is truly Warner Brothers Discovery, not just Warner Brothers. So let's see if all of the tricks of the trade, of the streaming trade that Discovery Plus claims to have mastered will indeed help HBO. HBO Max, or now Max. I think their biggest problem is piracy. Look, the content is still great. It has been great. If everybody isn't subscribed to HBO Max, it's because they don't want to be, or they're getting it for free somewhere else. During the presentation, they were saying some crazy stuff like, one of the reasons we think we suffer churn is that people's payment method expires, or there isn't money on that account. So we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. We're going to remind them and say, hey, your card's no good. It's going to be the equivalent of, the waiter coming back to your table and saying your card was declined. But instead, it'll be the streaming service, which I feel is very, very weird. I don't really feel that's their problem. And they've changed so one big thing off the bat that I want to discuss, well, I'll bring up the first image here, is that you can see there all their brands. It still looks like a grab bag to me. It still looks like a grab bag. Although Disney, of course, I think has suffered from having just one flavor. If Disney Plus were to have Hulu as a tab on their service, like they do in other countries where it's Star, would it have less of an identity? Potentially, potentially. Although, as they said here, Disney Plus's real strength is that it's a babysitting service, and very much of today's presentation was about Max wanting to be an alternative babysitting service for you. And I'm like, nothing's going to beat Disney. No one's going to want, I guess, actually now people are looking for an alternative to Disney because they're upset with Disney, some people. But I still feel at the end of the day, people, if you're going to park your kid in front of something, it's going to be Disney. But yeah, I feel that this blue color looks like Paramount Plus. It looks like Disney Plus. I liked the purple, even though it was engineered to appeal to women. Sacre bleu! Is that why I like it? Because I am a woman? But I liked the purple. I liked it. Also, I've gotten used to it. It was a royal purple, in my opinion. It was prestige. This, to me, just looks like every other streaming service, quite frankly. But we'll see. we'll see what happens. I liked the purple a lot more. I thought it was great. I thought it set it apart, and it's going to be kind of weird for me. Also, here's the thing. Everything is branded Max. As you're going to see as we go through this, even the HBO shows are branded as Max shows, which I think kind of hurts their prestige a little bit. Like, there's a little HBO logo really small, but they're like, but it's on Max. And I'm like, what? That's right, Cosmix. Prime Video is also blue. I guess, of course, market research has said that blue and orange are the favorite colors of the public. But, let's see. If their numbers suddenly explode, and Discovery Plus, by the way, is primarily blue. If their numbers suddenly explode and they're able to combat churn, we'll be like, well, good job. But I got to tell you, I think that Warner Brothers has always been a prestige brand, and it's so weird that Discovery seems to be doing everything they can to strip away that prestige. But Casey Bloys was very much a big part of this presentation. That's him right there, Casey Bloys, who runs HBO and now all of Max's scripted content. Casey Bloys is a great leader. Zazie walked out at the beginning and the end of the presentation with a little bit of a New York accent, and I was like, I sometimes have a little bit of a New York accent, so good for you, Zazie. And then some other dude who I didn't catch his name. Some other dude who was the one who talked about pricing and stuff. So anyway, yeah, I'm like, Casey Bloys is awesome. But let's talk about the biggest headline to come out of this, all right? We're not going to watch the teasers poke, but we're going to look at some images, okay? So here we go. I haven't yet figured out how to play video during a live stream. I'll have to look into what service other people are using. And then also I believe that I might get in trouble showing video. And so that's also another issue. But all these trailers are up on the HBO Max, still called HBO Max YouTube channel. We're going to take a look at all the images though. All right? So right here we go. The big story. They're rebooting Harry Potter. What? We wanted you to do a hard reboot on DC, not Harry Potter. I think Harry Potter personally should be treated like Game of Thrones, where they go and they tell different stories in the universe, like go and discover different corners. I think retelling the original stories. You know what this sounds like to me? This sounds like the ridiculous idea that Netflix had to do a live-action retelling of The Last Airbender. So the next image you can see is all the books. There they are. We're going to do them again. Just if you want to know how much the original cast either doesn't like J.K. Rowling or asked for too much money, maybe it was both, but they're going to reboot. That means there's going to be a new Harry Potter, a new Ron Weasley, a new Hermione. It's the dumbest thing I ever heard. And they're going to be kids. They're going to be little kids. A lot of fan bases, a lot of franchises have realized that as their fan base gets older, they want stories that reflect them now that they're adults. So to have a bunch of adults go back and watch a bunch of kids in the first year of Hogwarts seems very stupid to me. It's a similar concern I have about the Percy Jackson show, which has a very adult fan base now because all those kids are grown up, and yet they're going to ask you to go back and watch a bunch of kids. I think everybody wants to see Aang and company all grown up. I think people would prefer to see Percy Jackson all grown up. And now I got to go watch these kids again. And it's not even a new story. It's the same story. They claim they'll be able to do it now in depth. Who cares? I already know the story, and if you want it in depth, go read the books. I can't believe they think that kids want to go and revisit that material. And I can tell you, I don't care how well this is made. To me, here's the magic sauce of HBO, right? They have the weekly drop, which was highlighted during this stream. The weekly Sunday night drop, dynamite, love it. And then they have prestige content that people like myself can break down. That is a wonderful formula. Disney has endangered that with their ridiculous 3 a.m. drop times. So it's a really nice system to have a weekly drop at a set time, prestige content that people want to do a deep dive in, thanks to all of us in the YouTube space, etc., all the articles online. And so it's really immersive. It's a beautiful machine that they have going. It happens for Game of Thrones. It happened for The Last of Us. It's great. I'm proud and honored to be a part of it. I think it works extremely well. I can't see myself breaking down a Harry Potter show for the second time that's been adapted with a bunch of little children as the characters. It just doesn't seem like, it's like it might have an audience, it might exist in its own space, Okay, I'll do a poll. All you guys want a poll. All right, we'll do a poll. Hold on, I'm typing it. How do you feel about a Harry Potter reboot? Hate it? Love it? Need to see it? And then I guess we can say, not into Harry Potter anymore. But really? I don't like that cat. Wait, hate it, love it, need to see it, want a different show. That's what I want to do. Because who isn't still into Harry Potter? I'm even still into Harry Potter. And I was never that into Harry Potter, to be honest with you. So then you can vote there, all right? So that's what they're doing. They're doing this new Harry Potter show. I had told you years ago, one of you remembered my tweet that Warner Brothers was working on getting, oh, thank you, Joello, for gifting those memberships, that they wanted a Harry Potter show. But they couldn't announce it until 2022, end of 2022, 2023, actually, it ended up being, because of the deal with Universal. And they were denying it because they didn't want, they weren't supposed to be developing it in secret, but they wanted to hit the ground running. So, and lo and behold, here it is. But I do not think this is the show that anybody wanted. I mean, look, Want a Different Show is already leading the poll. And it's already way over 1,000 votes. That was quick. You guys feel very passionately about this. So yeah, and also I think some people are still, as Scott pointed out, J.K. Rowling has still made a lot of people very upset. And if you're going to get someone to go past their morals, your moral code, like I remembered when Gunn's tweets came out, I had a friend who was like, I'm never watching anything of his again unless it looks really good. And I think, that's the way, unfortunately, I think to some degree that's the way the mainstream public handles themselves. So I don't think this is a good enough excuse for anyone to be like, well, I'm upset with J.K. Rowling, so I guess, but I'm still going to go back. So it's fascinating. Let me end this poll and then we'll get on to the Game of Thrones announcement. All right, so the poll is 38% of you want a different show, 30% just flat out hate it. You don't even want to ask for a different show. You just want to make sure this doesn't happen. 19% are open to seeing it, and a mere 10% love it. Those numbers are not great. Not great, Zazie. Not great. I'm surprised that they felt this was a good idea. I think maybe they feel it's going to help them with the babysitting. Maybe they feel there's some 2-year-old out there who would like to be parked in front of the Harry Potter show. They're like, oh, it's going to be like Stranger Things. And you're like, hey, guess what? Do a new class of students at Hogwarts then. I would be okay with that. Do a new class of students. I mean, I still feel everybody would be like, I don't want to watch a bunch of kids. But, have a bunch of students, just like the new Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy game, and, you could do that. But to have a new Harry and Ron and Hermione is just absolutely absurd to me. It's such a dumb idea, it's hard to believe that it was approved. It's like, wow. It's like the kind of dumb ideas that people make fun of in sketches about Hollywood. All right, so let's talk about the next, I don't know if this is a dumb idea or not. Let's see, all right? So they're also bringing back another Game of Thrones show. Now, when they started to say, and they had when they were talking about how successful Game of Thrones was, and they were like, oh, everybody loves Game of Thrones. And you wouldn't have guessed it. You never would have thought that we could have done it after that horrible 8th season. But House of the Dragon worked out. And Ryan Condal, by the way, is making this new show as well. Ryan Condal is, he's taken over for Weiss and Benioff. He's the new Mr. Game of Thrones. And I don't mind that because House of the Dragon was so good. But I was expecting them to announce a Jon Snow show. But Jon Snow knows nothing and has no show. Because he didn't get a show. They're instead doing this thing called A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, the Hedge Knight. And I was like, what the heck is that? And they were like, oh, it's about a knight and his squire Egg. And I was like, oh yeah, I've heard of Egg. Looked him up. It's Aegon the Fifth. Aegon the Fifth Targaryen. So this is actually between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones. What? This is getting complex. This is getting Star Wars complex, where you're like, wait a minute. It should have been called Dunk and Egg, quite frankly. But I think that the problem is that I didn't drop a massive spoiler. That's they said this during the presentation. So anyway, they're like, oh, it's the Dunkin' Egg show. It sounds like Dunkin' Eggs. But anyway, Egg is a squire, a tiny squire. So it has like basically Sword in the Stone type qualities where they're like, this squire shall become king. And he becomes Aegon the Fifth. And I didn't have time to look up what he does. But it's not Aegon the Conqueror, which is Aegon the First. There are too many Aegons, as we know from Viserys' deathbed's comments. Remember, he was like, oh, I'm all into Aegon. And, oh yeah, that's right, Egg On. That's funny. I guess that's where the nickname Egg maybe comes from to a degree. But remember, Viserys was like, Aegon. And everyone was like, which one, Viserys? You gotta be precise with the Aegons. And now we're getting another one. And everyone wanted Henry Cavill to play Aegon the Conqueror, Aegon the First. But no, we're getting Aegon the Fifth. So, I don't know. This could be pretty good. I don't know how much Game of Thrones that you can have, quite frankly, to be honest with you. I feel like there was Game of Thrones, and now we're telling a new story, House of the Dragon, Dance of the Dragons, the big Targaryen civil war. And I don't really know if you can tell a simultaneous story, quite frankly. I feel there can really maybe just be one Game of Thrones show at a time. Oh, I sense a new poll. All right, hold on. There's got to be a reason for the live, in addition to getting this up as fast as possible. But so, what is the bandwidth for Game of Thrones? Brenda's like, give it to me. Give me all of it. That's great, Brenda. I like your enthusiasm. So one show at a time. 2 shows at a time. Give me everything. Give me as much as possible. The Brenda option. Brenda, I love you. I love your enthusiasm. You make me more enthusiastic. There you go. So you can vote for that while we're talking. I didn't even have a chance to straighten my hair. I washed my hair last night, so it's a little bit curly. I apologize. That's how fast this came together. Everybody likes the Brenda option. I love it, Brenda, although right now one show at a time is winning. But I like your enthusiasm, Brenda. It makes me feel for maybe just a second at least that maybe it could work out, So, yeah, we'll see. I'm surprised at this. I'm really surprised. And also let's see what the casting is. And I have to tell you, at the end of the day, I have tremendous faith in Ryan Condal after how well he did House of the Dragon. So basically, if Ryan Condal thinks this is a good idea, I'm okay with it. I'm like, what do you want to do, Ryan? And he's like, I'd like to do another of these shows. And I go, okay, let's do it. I'll cover it. Let's see, I guess we have to, you know what? Maybe that's the good thing, because it takes so long to make these frickin' shows. It'll only feel like one show at a time to us. Maybe they need more shows. Maybe that's it. Maybe the 2 at a time. Sorry to everybody who voted for 1 show at a time right away. But maybe it's only 1 show at a time airs. But look how long we have to wait for season 2 of House of the Dragon. If they had a different show, we maybe could get 2 a year instead of 1 a year or 1 every other year, which we don't like. So maybe that's the magic to it. That's interesting. Let's see what happens. All right, let me close the poll and we'll move on to some other news that was dropped. All right, so 1 show at a time. 1 at 62%. That's what I would expect. 20% took the Brenda option, give me as much as possible. And then 17% said 2 shows at a time. Brenda, I not only love your enthusiasm, but I love that you're a female fan. I love seeing women fans get more into the space and be fans and be recognized. It's awesome. I agree with Haunted Autumn. Team Brenda. You made my day, Brenda. All right. So Game of Thrones. Woo, Game of Thrones. More Game of Thrones. Again, this is all starting May 23rd. And they're not going to switch your app over, but when you open the HBO app, the HBO Max app, they're going to say, thanks, Brenda, that's so sweet. They're going to say, you want to download Max because this app's going to go away. I still think it's ridiculous. They're going to say, your credit card was declined. I don't know who thinks that's a good idea to have that come up as a notification on their app, right? That seems nuts to me. That just seems absolutely nuts. Alberta, who wrote that? 1 second. B said, wouldn't this spoil House of the Dragon to have something that happened afterwards? That's a good point. They're going to have to really be careful how they write it. And that's right, they did add PayPal, pal, so that you can go into debt paying off your HBO Max or your Max subscription. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. All right, so some other things were revealed. Let's talk DC. What? That's right. Isn't that incredible that DC is not the premier brand of HBO or of Max? I like calling it HBO. I'm sorry. All right, of Max. That's right, Dr. Long Monkey. Keep on booping. All right, so next, they talked about DC. And Matt Reeves will, in fact, make it to the service first with the Penguin that is filming right now. And they actually showed a trailer which didn't look at all like a DC show to me whatsoever. I was like, oh, this is just like goth Sopranos. And I guess that kind of works because The Sopranos, of course, is what put HBO on the map as prestige television. So I thought it was fine. I'm interested in the show. I'll certainly watch it. But they didn't have a single DC comic book thing in it except for Colin Farrell as the Penguin. There were no other characters from DC Comics. There wasn't any other villains. They didn't name drop anything. That's right. I would prefer the Asylum show, Britt, the Arkham Asylum show. I don't know why we're getting this, quite frankly. But they were like, they didn't name drop Bruce Wayne. They didn't name drop Arkham Asylum. They didn't name drop anything. They had the Falcone family. They were like, oh yeah, there's other crime families. And I was like, okay, I think that's what we're going to call it. Goth Sopranos. And there's Colin Farrell. And so they had a nice little trailer, which I felt bad when they started to air it. I was like, no, I'm watching it. How am I going to react to this? I have other stuff to do today. And then they were like, oh, here's this trailer. And I was like, oh, thank God it's not good. All right. And then they also had a little graphic they put together. Oh, thanks, Dancing Dog 60. Always so generous. That's right, Chico. I would have taken a Catwoman show. And they didn't say anything about the animated Harley Quinn series, Gaga Stan. I don't know when we're getting that. And then they also spotlighted all of the James Gunn shows that are coming to the service as well. The only one that is anywhere near ready to go is this Creature Commandos one on the left, where it was announced today that Frank Grillo would be the star of the show and would be playing his character beyond animation in live action as well. That to me was a absolute, it was a little bit frustrating to see the way it was working. They're very quick to shut down any scoops over there, and then they give them to the trades that play ball with them. I thought was what kind of a Fox News world are we living in here, man? Right? That reminded me when Ron DeSantis said that a press conference he was giving was a Fox exclusive. And you're like, what the heck is that? Oh, he just announced the whole cast for the show. Is there any name on it that's any big? I don't think stealing Crossbones from the MCU is the get that maybe DC thinks it is. Frank Grillo will be the star. David Harbour? From the Thunderbolts movie? Oh, what is happening here? I'm sure Kevin Feige is like, I didn't need this today. Let me go look up the tweet. Oh, Maria Bakalova, isn't she from Guardians of the Galaxy? Oh, it's such a James Gunn fest. It is the Gunverse. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care. All right, so the Creature Commandos. Okay, there it goes. Okay, Grillo. The addition is David Harbour is Frankenstein. Indira Varma is the bride. That's pretty cool. She's from Game of Thrones. She played Pedro Pascal's sister. Alan Tudyk is Dr. Phosphorus. I hope he's just not doing his same voice from Harley Quinn. Maria Bakalova is Alana Rostovic. And then Sean Gunn, you have to laugh, as G.I. Robot and Weasel. And then Zoe Chow is Nina Mazursky, and Steve Agee returning as John Economos. My God, man, what the heck? All right, whatever. It is what it is, dude. I got to tell you, as much as I liked the Snyderverse, I felt that the casting was subpar beyond some of the key players. Remember when Joe Manganiello got so upset that he blocked me on Twitter because I said he was a horrible Deathstroke. I was like, man, talk about bargain basement casting. And he got really angry. But I mean, it was true. And I kind of feel like it's Peacemaker level casting. And I feel like it's not what I think that we're looking for. Maybe I think that the Gunverse fans will love it. I think the Gunverse fans will be like, woo, we're so happy. It's exactly what we like. But how big is that audience? And James Gunn has gone beyond controlling the projects to now even controlling the press. It's a little bit like he's like the Ron DeSantis of Hollywood, like with his little corner, like instead of Florida, he controls DC. And that's like very bizarre to me. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how everybody feels about it. If I were Kevin Feige, I'd be like, get me David Harbour's phone number right now. I'd be so upset. I'd be really, really, really upset if I were Kevin Feige. I'd be like, oh, look, Red Guardian isn't in Thunderbolts. Because he's still writing it, by the way. That's true. I'd be like, oh, my God. Red Guardian had a horrible accident. That's what I would do today. I'd be like, oh, it was brutal. It was brutal. But don't worry, David Harbour's still employed. He's still over there, voicing Frankenstein. Have a good time, buddy. So all right. So this Creature Commando show is coming soon to Max. So we'll see what happens. That's right. It is poaching actors, Heather. And I agree. I don't think it's a classy thing to do, quite frankly. Frank Grillo, he wasn't ever coming back, so that's fine. But I feel like David Harbour is just getting started over at Marvel, and I feel like that's kind of an uncool thing to do. So we'll see how close Feige and Gunn really are. Are they really super buddies? I love that James Gunn was like, oh yeah, we're totally going to do a crossover. Oh no, James Gunn said the likelihood of a crossover between Marvel and DC increases with me as the head of DC. And there were crickets from the Marvel side. It's like when Amy Pascal used to talk about Feige too. Remember? Amy Pascal was like, oh, me and Kevin Feige are best friends. And Kevin Feige literally, we had him on camera being like, oh my God. It's really funny. So funny. All right, so whatever, man, whatever. It's the Gunverse. That's where I'm calling it, and I continue not to get any reason to call it something else. All right, let's move on to the next thing. Next story, all right. Also, they're bringing back the Big Bang Theory. I actually was kind of excited about this. Hey, Finn, that's awesome for you to gift some memberships. It's very kind of you. The Big Bang Theory is coming back, and I actually think this is a great idea. I think it's a very good idea, largely because none of these people are working, really. I mean, Kaylee Cuoco is working, although I don't know if Harley Quinn's going to continue. But I think that everybody here still available. They got nothing to do. Let's do it. I'm curious if it's going to be a spin-off focusing on just one character. And even if it is, I bet you that it will have guest appearances from everybody else. But remember, when this show finished, they had all gotten married for the most part, and they were about to start families. And so I think that's a great idea to maybe fast forward and see what they're like, out more in the real world. I think it's just a really fabulous idea, and I will definitely watch this, 100,000%. So I think it's great. Great idea. So this was announced. And then, speaking of poaching from other studios, look who's now Mr. Warner Brothers Discovery, Robert Downey Jr. Oh, he said, oh, you killed off my character? Bye. And he's left the mouse, and he is now Mr. Warner Brothers Discovery. And he is doing several projects over there. Of course, he produces Perry Mason for them already that he was going to star in. And now Matthew Rhys is the head of that show. Great show. Love Perry Mason. You should be watching season 2. But now he is going to be doing more on-camera stuff. So Robert Downey Jr., he's also ripped off Jay Leno and is going to be doing his own car show, but he's going to be remaking his cars as environmentally friendly cars. Thank you very much. So you're like, what? Yeah, as Kyle even said, it's Jay Leno's garage. He ripped off the show. So that's a bold move, man. But that's fine. And also, it's a little bit like Jerry Seinfeld, comedians in cars getting coffee. And that's right, it's a little bit like Renner. How many new ideas are there, really, I guess, in the reality space? So Robert Downey Jr. is like, yeah, I'm building cars, man. And then also he has a new show called The Sympathizer, which we'll talk about when we get to the trailer section, which actually looks really good to me. Robert Downey Jr. looks the weakest part of the show. It's like he's taking what he did in Tropic Thunder, and he's doing it in this spy show with Park Chan-wook, who did Old Boy, he's like a supporting role. And I'll be curious to see how it does. Nobody watched Tokyo Vice, which was a real shame for Michael Mann, although Ansel Elgort kind of ruined his career, so it was not great. Not blackface. It's 2023. You can't do that anymore. But he's going to be wearing a lot of different get-ups and having totally different looks. His character is a spy. Robert Downey Jr. is playing a spy who constantly has different looks. And if you watch that trailer, which is up right now on the HBO Max YouTube channel, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. That show actually looked the strongest to me of the shows that they were previewing. But then first, also before we get to that, horror. Warner Brothers has done very well in the horror space. So they're doing horror. Welcome to Derry, which they'd already announced. They're moving ahead with that aggressively. I'd be like, Billy Skarsgård is still available. By the way, speaking of streaming services, Peacock dropped the trailer today for The Continental, and nobody paid attention to it. Peacock is having a little bit of a journey right now of finding out what exactly they need to have to get someone to actually watch their service, because the amazing Poker Face isn't doing it, so maybe The Continental will. I didn't think the trailer was that amazing, and it's only a 3-night event, so I don't really see that helping them out to a degree, but let's see. But it's, everybody's in the brand game. What can they have that makes people go, I gotta watch this? I guess I have to churn. Churn, baby, churn. So welcome to Derry, but then although that's right, Josh loves movies. If The Continental has amazing action sequences, I will be excited about it. But then also a Conjuring series. What? What the what? How much can The Conjuring withstand? How many spin-offs and shows can The Conjuring handle? Let's see. Let's see who the talent is. I gotta say, I do like the Conjuring brand, so I probably will take a look and see what this thing is. Is it an anthology show? Maybe I'll watch that. This sounds pretty good. So yeah, let me see. So I think they're doing pretty good in the horror space. Horror is big right now. Paramount has a horror whole Twitter channel, a Twitter account that's like, what's it called? Paramount Scares, I discovered the other day. I was like, wow, horror is a really big space. I'm seeing Evil Dead Rise on the 19th, just a few days before it opens. But I'll be reviewing it. People are very excited about, that movie. All right, so let's look at some of these trailers that they debuted. They debuted a whole bunch of trailers, and so let's talk about this. Now, I want to call to mind the branding, so I'm going to cover myself up here just for a moment. Now, look at this. A show like True Detective Night Country doesn't say HBO in the corner. It says Max. What the heck is that? That makes it seem to me like a cheaper show. An HBO, it's very tiny there, it's an HBO original, just over the title. I think that's nuts. But that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. So as you can see, they all say Max. Regardless, this Love in Translation, which, by the way, where only the women don't speak English. so insulting. They were like, oh, we have couples where one of them doesn't speak the same language. And I'm like, okay, apparently 90 Day Fiancé is so big that it holds up the entire Discovery Plus network. But they were like, oh, one of them doesn't speak English. And you're like, oh, do you alternate who doesn't speak English? They're like, no. So I'm like, who's watching this, by the way? Are men watching these shows? So they're like, we're going to have a bunch of guys talking to women, hot ladies, who don't speak English. And they're probably like, this is the most amazing show I've ever seen. It's like the Andrew Tate special over there. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. I can't believe this is really happening in the world. All right, so let's go over these trailers. I saw them all while they did this presentation. And by the way, the presentation, I put a link to it on my Twitter account. You can rewatch it if you would like to see the presentation, the full presentation. All right, so the Penguin show, as you can see, with a Max logo on it. What is that? Was that just a Max show overall? Oh, it says DC. Look, it doesn't even say HBO. That's crazy. DC, by the way, has become its own brand in the Warner Brothers Discovery stable. So when you look at this, it just says Max and then DC over the Penguin. Oh, it doesn't have the HBO affiliation. That's incredible to me. That's bold. I hope James Gunn doesn't poop the brand. So that's really interesting. All right. Then Smartless It's just a Max show. Smartless is a very popular podcast, which I've actually had recommended to me. And I've been meaning to listen to it because I love all these guys. I love Jason Bateman. I kind of love Will Arnett. I go back and forth on Will Arnett. And I love Sean Hayes. So you can watch them on the road. And they're basically doing, remember, David Letterman is actually even a guest on this show. And no Dune things, Morgan, I'm afraid. No Dune just yet. Although they were like, Dune 2 is going to be on this service. Get excited. So anyway, they're going to go to 6 different shows. They're going to go to 6 different cities and interview different people live on stage, but you're also going to see them on tour. So it's like behind the scenes with these 3 guys riffing, making fun of each other, laughing. They ask such questions as, should we get a tattoo? Will Arnett tries to hold Jason Bateman's hand. And I got to tell you, it was somewhat engaging. When you first think about it, you're like, I don't know. But I think these 3 guys really are under the category of they're just fun to hang out with. And that's what this show is going to offer. So I actually feel that's not a bad idea. Then some people actually watch this Fixer Upper stuff. This is from Discovery. But now you'll note there's no Discovery logo. It's just a Max show. And so that really is... you'd be like, put Discovery on that thing so we can identify it. And they're like, no, it's just a Max show. And you're like, so if you watch Max, you're the type of person who watches a service that has shows on it like Fixer Upper. So that's actually quite popular. What is it, Chip and Joanna Gaines? I've heard of them. So that means they're pretty famous. All right, so they're going to make over a hotel. Woo! All right, then there's this Love in Translation show, which I told you I found pretty offensive. Then that's right, Jake, here's the Barbie Dreamhouse Challenge. That's how they're going to help promote the Barbie movie. They're doing a Barbie Dreamhouse Challenge where it's a home makeover show, but you're going to be making it in the theme of a Barbie Dreamhouse. And I'm like, Margot Robbie better frickin' show up on this thing or it's going to seem really cheap. But yeah. I don't know. I'm sure I'm surprised Mattel was like, we trust you, Warner Brothers Discovery, with our brand. And I know that it's about to get real political with the Warner Brothers movie, and it's about to get real reality TV and also I got to tell you, none of this is directed at children. Even though they said they want to have a babysitting service. You're like, aren't you trying to make something, like if you have the Barbie brand, why don't you have a Barbie show that's for kids? And they're like, no. We're leaning into the adults who like Barbie. And you're like, oh, really? How many of there are those? Let's see. Anthony said Trixie Mattel better be involved. And I believe Trixie Mattel was featured during this presentation, but not with this show. Then Gremlins is back, produced by Steven Spielberg with no branding. This is just a Max show. I do like the focus, of where the Gremlins come from with an Asian cast. And it's going to be an animated series about the return of the Gremlins. So I don't know. That looked very kiddie to me. I was like, oh, that's cute, but it looks super. It's weird. You want a weird middle ground, right? You want a space where kids could watch, but no adult is like, what? Okay. Then they showed off, and then Casey Bloys came out and he said, don't panic, everybody. HBO is still here, and we're still a prestige brand. And to prove it, he showed 3 trailers, and I got to tell you, they were pretty good. All right, so Night Country, season 4 of True Detective. And I don't know, I think it looked pretty good. I was like, oh, look, Jodie Foster's still alive. And she looked like she was doing a pretty good job. I felt, for the most part, I was like, oh, yeah, didn't Whiteout already do this to a degree? Remember, it was a Greg Rucka comic and then a crappy Kate Beckinsale movie? But I was like, I feel like, and also I feel like I've seen a number of stuff where they were like, ooh, in Alaska, the sun doesn't rise for a couple of months. And you were like, oh, yeah. So I feel like that's what this is. But I have to tell you, there was one shot at the end of there are 2 things involving the ice. It is a little bit like Fargo, Daniel. I agree, Cabello. One line in the trailer was somebody said, how scared do you have to be to run across the ice without your shoes? And I was like, pretty freaking scared. And then They had a great shot at the end where Jodie Foster in a white coat was walking across the ice for some dumb reason, and the ice broke beneath her in the darkness, and the lantern she was holding dropped and then lit her from below as she dropped through the ice, kind of. And I was like, that's one of the most beautiful shots I've ever seen. That's what you like. That's why we watch HBO, for the art, right? And, Max doesn't really seem like a service that has art on it, but whatever. I guess it does now on the HBO tab. Then the Regime with Kate Winslet's back. This is where she became pals with Andrea Riseborough. And then who else was on it? It was the woman who was just in the Goonies, right? Everybody was like, oh, this is where she got her start. And I was like, oh yeah, I know that lady. Who is it? Who is the one with glasses in the Goonies? I'm forgetting her name. Martha Plimpton. Thank you, Mika. Martha Plimpton actually looked like she was doing a very good job. Basically, it's a lot of women running government. And it seems like Kate Winslet runs some small Eastern European country, and she might be a bit of a Putin. That seemed to be the story to me. But you know what it looked like to me a lot? It looked to me like The Great, which is on Hulu and just about to start its 3rd season. And I was like, why doesn't anybody watch The Great? So anyway, that's The Regime. And then this show, The Sympathizer, that's Robert Downey Jr., who I could have sworn was Hank Azaria when they first showed this picture. I was like, wow, Hank Azaria sure is getting a lot of work these days. And they're like, oh no, that's Robert Downey Jr. And I was like, wow, that's some impressive hair and makeup. So that's The Sympathizer. And it's about a Vietnamese spy who came over to the United States, actually. And he's like a double, triple, quadruple agent? You don't know. There was one good line where Robert Downey Jr. says, this is spy work. It gets real wet down here. And it reminded me, of course, of the term wet work. And I was like, this interests me. I couldn't quite catch this actor's name, the guy next to Robert Downey Jr., but I was like, there's your breakout star. He was incredible in the trailer. He did an amazing job. I would highly recommend that you watch this trailer. Robert Downey Jr. is not playing someone who's Vietnamese. He is someone from the United States working with this Vietnamese spy. And I was pretty impressed. It was very, very good. The Sympathizer, to me, actually, surprisingly, out of the 3 of these trailers, looked by far and away the absolute best. And I hope this guy gets a lot of work. I was like, that guy's a star. Is that his name? Hua Zand? I'm trying to make sure I pronounce it correctly. He blew me away. I was like, that guy's a superstar. All right, so those are the trailers that they showed during the event. Now, let's talk a little bit about how this is going to work. All right, so let me put this back where I want it. All right, and then don't worry, then we'll do a Q&A. All right? So, all right, here we go. Oh, is that a novel we see? That's great. As you know, I'm not a big reader. So I shall watch the series. What did Liros say? I see all white and not much diversity. Maybe that's the color they need instead of the sad blue. That's an interesting comment, Liros. Well, you have this show, and you have the Gremlins, but I think that's maybe to a degree certainly true. I think that's a great comment, Liros. And it's funny, I was watching Peyton Place yesterday, and I saw how much the world had changed and how much, I think I've always believed that people want to see themselves reflected in the content that they watch. And I think that is important. And I think an authentic content, by the way. And that's what I liked about The Sympathizer. I thought it was very authentic. That's right, Heather. Zazie is a conservative. So I think that is somewhat reflected in what you're seeing. Okay, so next thing here. The pricing. Woo! How much is it going to cost you for all this content? It's $9.99 with ads, and they were great. They were like, we're going to have the most beautiful ads you've ever seen. Oh, they're going to be gorgeous. There's going to be stuff for you to click on. And I'm like, are you going to not show the same ad every ad break? And they were like, I don't know. That's my problem with Hulu. If you get ads on Hulu, you're like, I just watched this ad. It's like, it's driving you insane. So $9.99 for the ad. They call it ad light. They're not even calling it an ad plan. They're like, don't worry, it's ad light. So you're like, okay. Then for $15.99, which is basically the price that you pay now, it's ad free. Okay? Now I was like, oh great. But I was like, so it's not going to change the price for me at all. But that's not true because right now I'm sharing my HBO Max account with some other households. That's right. That's what everybody does. But I only get 2 consecutive streams at $15.99. Let me give you this big so you can see the specifics. Hold on. See you in a minute. So if you want 2 concurrent streams at a time, that's also for the ad plan. Only 2 households can stream at the same time. So if you all want to watch Succession at the same time, you can't do this if it's more than 2 people. And by the way, if you want downloads, you get 30 downloads for $15.99. But then there's the ultimate plan. I was like, what the heck is an ultimate plan? All right, here you go. The ultimate plan is $20 a month, which is nuts, for 4K and HDR with Dolby Atmos. That's right. You want this to look good and sound good? Give me $20. I'm like, it's fine at HD. Then if you want 4 concurrent streams, you got to pay for this. And then you get 100 downloads. And I'm like, I don't know. I guess that's a lot. I don't really download anything ever. But yeah, I think their biggest problem is piracy. Everybody pirates HBO Max from what I can see. Their shows are often the most pirated. So they better find a way to combat piracy. I think that should be their chief concern. So that's what's going to cost you. Then let's talk a little bit about a concurrent stream. Dory does voices. It means is how many places basically you can share it with. 2 concurrent streams means that 2 different places can stream the show at the same time. Let's say there's event television and you're sharing your your Max account with some friends. And of course, you all want to watch The Last of Us when it drops. Well, only 2 of you can at $15.99 a month, but 4 of you can for $20 a month. So I guess you'll not just share your password, but maybe you'll have to start sharing the expenses. That's what my family does. We take turns as to which service we pay for. Antonio just found out about the Peyton Place comment. Yeah, I love Peyton Place. I rewatch that every few years. It's a great movie. Wonderful film. All right, so Jerome says, hey, Grace, personally, I'm done with streaming services like these. They're milking people during tough economic times. That's right. Churn, churn, churn. Churn, baby, churn. You know, it's going to be a lot of churns. All right, then next, here's the way it's going to look. Hold on. I'm going to disappear again for a moment so you can really see this. This is what the user face is going to look like. I wish I'd gotten a closer picture, but I had to be fast on Firefox to grab these things. All right, so here we go. That's what it's going to look like. Sorry, it's a little blurry. And you can see that it's like different categories. Like, what is this? Like home, I think that looks like. Hold on, let me find it on my thing so I can read it better. Where did this go? Yeah, home, series, movies, then HBO is right at the top. So HBO, they're like, don't worry, HBO is still a driving force here. We're putting it right at the top. And then new and notable is the section. Because they said, everybody just watches the homepage. That was one of their complaints during this telecast. They said, nobody goes and, explores. And, people seem to, surprise. They seem to go, yes, Xtina, it is with Lana Turner. They like to go and they like to they come to the service and they know what they want to watch. And you're like, yep, sounds about accurate. I got to tell you, I don't do a lot of exploring on any of the services I'm on. I almost always know what I want to watch when I log on. That's why you got to pay for advertising. Oh my God, what? All right, so that's that. And then also, they're finally going to let you have a little avatar. Ooh, look who I am. You could be Daenerys. You could be a shark, because Shark Week, of course, is Discovery. So you could be a shark. Although part of me was like, who should my avatar be? And then everybody will have a mandatory kids section. A kids thing, because of course they want you to babysit. They already have avatars? Well, I guess they're getting more. Why didn't I use any avatars? I never set up avatars off. I just have like the first letter. All right, so let's see here. Where do we go? All right, then what was my next image here? Oh, yeah. How did I get back to the penguin? Okay, hold on, where am I? Is that my last image? Yeah, it was. Okay. All right, there we go. All right, so that's my presentation. I think it's like really, I don't know how I feel about it, quite frankly. I feel honestly that I'm excited about all the new shows, but I don't think it's going to change my experience whatsoever. They said there'll be like things like faster launch time. They're like, are you tired of the load screen? Are you tired about that? You know, and I'm like, I don't really ever think about that. I'm never like, damn it, if only this would load faster. I'm just, you know, it doesn't matter to me. All right, so let's do the Q&A section of this. Hold on, let me go mark it. All right, Q&A, baby. Talk to me. What are your thoughts? That's right, Rodolfo. Where the hell's the Mortal Kombat content? They still have a lot of brands they're not utilizing. They were talking about movies and how important it is for them to be a theatrical release and then trickle down. And they were like, oh, Shazam 2 is going to launch with this. And you're like, what? Everyone has seen it, wants to have seen it at this point. Denzel O'Neill says, what would you have named it, Grace? I would have named it Warner Brothers Plus. Honestly. I mean, you don't need to have Discovery in the name because they kept Discovery as its own separate service. And now they're just hoping that maybe you'll click on some of the content here as well. I like Warner Plus as well, B-Weeb. I like Warner Plus. I like WB Plus. I mean, we're talking about Warner Brothers. They had a whole presentation. They were like, ooh, look at our portfolio. Look at the Warner Brothers brand. And I was like, it is very impressive. I mean, I was sitting there and I was like, yep, you definitely bought. I mean, it was funny to see people talk about something with the exception, of course, of Casey Bloys, but something they did not build. That was really incredible to me. You know, they were like, wow, look at all the stuff we have. And you're like, that's right. And you just bought it. It had a real, like, salesman type approach to it. Like, yeah, hey, kids. Which is literally what they want to do. They want kids to watch it. Poke says, I would have named it HBO Warner. But they don't want to put HBO on there because, you know, they're going to have, like, not prestige stuff on there. Danny says, rebooting Harry Potter is a slap in the face to Alan Rickman and Robbie Coltrane, who, of course, both passed away. I would agree on that. B, I will review Mando, but not till much later today. I wrote out my script, but my morning got away from me, I'm afraid. Oh, Danny, I'm so glad you loved Air. And I have not started to watch Beef, I'm afraid. But, you know, I'm hearing good things about it. David said, Grace, is Carol really no longer the lead in the Marvels? I feel really bad. I had told you before that Nia DaCosta has more of an affinity for Monica, and I think that is reflected in the trailer. Weesey says, Warner Brothers equals old Hollywood classic. I don't really know if that, I mean, I hope you mean that in a positive way, because I just think that the Warner Brothers, I really love Warner Brothers. And I feel if they were operating at maximum capacity, they would be able to truly compete with Disney, as Universal is now trying to do. Let's see here. Toon Dude 19 says, a prequel show for Harry Potter would have done very well. The Marauder's Tale, Harry Potter's dad and friends in Hogwarts leading up. Oh yeah, what about Harry's parents? That would have been really interesting. That would have been very House of the Dragon. Allie Smudge says, what's your opinion on voice actors crossing over to play their characters in live action? So many recently with Katie Sackhoff, Dwayne Johnson, what did he, you know, and now this DC character. And that's right. And it was announced at Star Wars Celebration that Lars Mikkelsen, brother of Mads, will be playing Thrawn, who he voiced on the Rebels animated series. I have mixed feelings about it. I think, will it get more people to watch animation? I'm not quite sure. I think that you want to make things as accessible as possible. And I worry that, you know, you're making things that have to people commit too much to. Like, what am I going to tell, you know, what about the casuals, you know? You know, we call them people, there's different people. Normies are people who are still into this, I think, but don't read everything and each and everything. A casual is someone who barely cares, but needs something to see this weekend. How are you going to casual to watch any of this stuff when they didn't see any of the shows or anything? Hey, T-Juice, thanks for joining. Let's see here. Hold on. Shadia says, how do you think the reboot will affect the park? In the Forbidden Journey, you see the original actors in the queue. Would they take them out? That is a great question, Shadia. I think they'd have to. I think they'd have to change the video component because it would no longer be current. And that would hurt, by the way, the residuals for the actors who filmed those things. So they're hurting them in the pocketbook. They're like, you don't want to sign on for an additional movie? Well, then we're not going to give you those residuals. That's fascinating. I think this is a mess, and I think that it's a very, very bad idea. And that's just yet another reason, I feel. Let's see here. Alan says, should have been Warner Max and kept the purple. I agree. I loved the purple. Voice Inject says, calling it now. Century is going to demolish Red Guardian early in Thunderbolts. Let's see. That's funny. Anthony says, is there a UK launch? They didn't launch in the UK since last time they sold shows to Sky. Well, they had no discussion about international, no discussion whatsoever about international launch. Let's see here. I don't know what you're saying. I do too, we see, I'm afraid. And then T-Juice, who just joined, says, I felt Warner Max was the obvious choice. Yeah, I think that's not a bad idea. Let's see here. Kieran says, long time no speak. Hey, Kieran. David says, Robert Downey Jr. would make a great Lex Luthor. Let's see. How deep is he into the Warner Brothers camp? Luke says, Harry Potter should be able to be reimagined. Most books are. But not this soon? I mean, the actors are still in their peak. You know, Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint. Every single one of them, I think, is still in a capacity where they could have come back to tell their stories and continue them. Anna says, if they want a new Harry Potter show, it needs to creatively differentiate itself from the OG films, including the logo. They should also explore social commentary with darker themes, maybe. But maybe in this story, in this same story, maybe they know these projects don't have prestige and flair or story, so that's why they're dropping HBO, not wanting to water it down? Potentially. I think that's what they said was their reasoning, although they would put a more positive spin on that. Isaiah says, any info on a Lady Gaga concert special for Max? I haven't heard anything about that. I know a number of you were expecting that to be announced, but it did not happen today. Evan says, just binged Game of Thrones. It's your first time watching it? What an experience that must have been. And House of the Dragon, both so good. I'm glad you're caught up, Evan, and just started Succession now, too. Thanks. I'm so glad that I got you on that show. Oh, welcome to the party, Evan. We're having a great time over here. Weesey says, Warner Brothers is a classy brand and has a rich heritage. I would agree. Let's see here. World of Devon, my Mando review will go up later this evening. Innovative David says, Grace, would have loved to see the OG3 come back for the Harry Potter series and play into the nostalgia of the series. Such a missed opportunity. Thoughts on a diverse cast with the reboot? Oh, I bet they do that, Innovative David. Oh, and that's very generous of you, by the way. I bet they do. You know, that wouldn't surprise me, just like they've done with Percy Jackson. And they did, of course, did that with Hermione on the stage play. That'll be very interesting. I don't think that's fair to do to an actor. I think that they should tell a new story with a diverse cast. I think that that's better for everybody, instead of some poor actress having to be put through the gauntlet like that. Let's see here. Let's see here. Mary says, Harry Potter was a commentary until J.K. Rowling decided her critics were like dementors. And Jose says, cast a new Harry Potter trio. Who would be your ideal cast? It's going to be children. I'm not familiar with child actors who are available these days. You know, they're going to have to go find a bunch of kids. John says, do studios ever pool audience interest for projects they create, or do they just look for potential profit upside, regardless of public perception? Let's see here. I think, you know, they do. They said they used a lot of data to make the decisions that they did today, and let's see if it works out. We see. You're so generous this stream. It was very kind of you to gift those memberships. Oh, thanks. This is a rainbow shirt, come to think of it. Dip, tuck, dive. Lewis Cook says, thank you for your insightful commentary on this whole Max situation, and I loved your Succession breakdown on Monday. Oh, thank you, Lewis. That really means a lot to me. I'm excited to do my Mando breakdown. I got, a lot of political undertones, I feel, in the show now, which is very interesting to me. Brother Quantum says, DSC is babysitting for adults. Discovery Plus is babysitting for adults. Oh, that's funny, Brother Quantum. That's a funny thing to say. I know some people who really love Discovery Plus, and I have to tell you, I love me some I love me some reality TV myself in some instances. I'm more into Bravo, as many of you know. But that's a funny thing to say. And I guess they're very successful. Discovery Plus does apparently have great retention, they said. Senior Hex says, I want to see Dumbledore actually be LGBT in the reboot. I think that's a great idea, and I hope that they do that. Mish says, thoughts they should do a Game of Thrones level show on 4 founders of Hogwarts and the conflicts that unfolded. Salazar Slytherin would be like the Lannisters. And I would think these are all great ideas. These are all wonderful ideas that we're not doing, which is ridiculous. Let's see. World of Devon says, Grace, Emma Watson retired. She said she wanted to leave on a good note with Beauty and the Beast. I feel there's a check and a script good enough to pull her back. I'm like Hank, whatever his name was in Tetris, who's like, wouldn't take no for an answer. I'm like, come on, Emma, this is going to be great. You tell me what would get you back into Harry Potter. Let's see here. Alwatch says, let's see. Oh, wait, hold on. I missed some of their questions. Okay, so Salty Snacks says, thoughts on a potential Silver Surfer Galactus tease in the Marvels. I got to tell you, I think that's a real deep cut. I don't know how much regular audiences are going to care about this stuff. I think, I've loved Easter eggs, and I think Easter eggs are very important. But I think we're getting, I think Andor didn't have enough, but now I think we're going too far in the other direction. The actual story has to be good too, so that it can become an Easter egg. And then you reference it and you go, oh, remember that story? That story was good. Alwatch says, what other Warner Brothers properties should they expand? Maybe more Sopranos, although they did. They did that Sopranos movie, which was so bad. Maybe reboot the Archieverse with a proper and new Sabrina. I don't know about that either. I don't know. That's over at Netflix anyway. I think they have a lot on their plate right now. I like the Mortal Kombat idea. I think they could definitely do more with Mortal Kombat. Allie says, last week you were talking about people that hadn't seen classic movies, and that was me with Titanic until last night. Oh, so glad I watched it finally. Oh, Allie, I'm so glad that you watched it. That's wonderful. With BTT Movie Watch Along, the club, we're going to try and do a little bit more classics, because I've seen that a number of you haven't watched some of these classics. And I think, I've seen like almost every movie ever made. And so I think it would be fun for me to rewatch them with you. Oh, JSN the Myth says, what about a different magic school? That's right. Remember all the schools that Hogwarts would play? What a good idea. That's a great idea. Elisa says they'll never be able to replace Alan Rickman as Snape unless they get Adam Driver. That's great casting, Lisa. That's great casting. Oh, L. Blum says, what about Murray Bartlett as Dumbledore? Oh, I would watch Murray Bartlett as Dumbledore. But I don't know if I'd watch the whole show, because I've tried to support Murray Bartlett in the Chippendales show, but it just got too boring. And how does a show about Chippendales get boring, right? That's ridiculous. Let's see here. I'm going to review Renfield tomorrow, Jeff Priest, but long story short, I'll just tell you now, I don't think it needs to be seen in theaters. HT says, I'm watching the Marvels trailer. It was okay, but did not have the wow factor. It's another example that Marvel is relying on comedic and cheesy stories that are G-rated. Yeah, I'm worried about no wow factor. Danny Boyd says, did they showcase the sound for Max? Like how Netflix has that Law and Order, da-dung, or ta-dum. That's what they said it is, ta-dum. I love that old school HBO presentation, song and dance. They didn't have a song. They didn't have a sound for Max, although I fear what the sound would be. Because, it's not a prestige brand. They're going for mass, and that's interesting. It's typically been well known in business that either you have if you're a prestige brand, you go for quality, but where you can make a lot of money is quantity, right? You want to sell more for less. Although, look at the price point for this service. So, So that's what they're really trying to go for. Let's see, did I miss anything else there? Oh, I like that, Derek Stewart. Ka-ching should be the sound. Cash register. Ka-ching. That's hilarious. World of Devon, I didn't watch the Harry Potter reunion. I'm going back, Subicio. Cole says, do you think they're ever going to do more with the Succession universe? I don't think so. Because I think that it's too good the way it is. And Jesse Armstrong probably wouldn't let them. Poor Immortum says, would the OG Harry Potter cast want to get mixed up with JK's turf ideals? Joining the reboot might make them... Yes, I think that is the problem. Exactly. So, and I'll be curious to see what actors are willing to be cast in the reboot. Maybe Murray Bartlett wouldn't even do it. Because J.K. Rowling ain't backing down. Let's see. Whelm says, Grace, how many chances will Gunn have for his projects? Well, let's just see how Superman does. Superman is going to be it's going to set the tone. You want chocolate, just Josh? It's like saying, here's a cookie for you. Let's see here. Mary says, I don't know what data they had collected. Marauders' Young Snape shows was fan... Well, no, they collected data, they said, on the way people behave when they use the streaming services. Finn Moreau says, my partner watched all of Game of Thrones and said he would prefer seeing a spin-off centered around Arya Stark and her journey to explore the world beyond the established universe that we all know. Yeah, they're not doing anything like that. That would have been interesting. I would have been interested maybe in the Jon... I don't know if I really even want a Jon Snow show. I would prefer a Stark show because remember, at the end of Game of Thrones, all the Stark kids went off in very interesting different directions. And I also feel that Daenerys could be revived. That dragon took her off for a reason, I feel. So that's what I feel they should do. Okay, I think I've caught up. I got to go film this Mando thing, and then I have to go run an errand, and then I will edit the Mandalorian thing. Anna says the Marauders would be a 70s themed show. That could be interesting, although the Continental is also a 70s themed show. Hey, Danielle says, hey, Grace, I'm not a fan of prequels. It doesn't advance the story, just continuity issues. How is Apple TV the only service with original content? But how well is Apple TV doing? Although I love Apple TV, it's phenomenal. But these brands are very important to keep people from churning. Hey, Simon, thank you. Bear Like Fire. I am very interested about the Gilpin show, Mrs. Davis or whatever. A nun versus artificial intelligence. I want to check that out. Now, Subicio, before I go, Subicio, what's your comment? Because I missed your chat and I can't find it. All right, Subicio, let's hear it. Cole, I think they know that HBO is still driving Max, so I don't see that happening. I don't see them dialing it down. Simon, I'm pretty disappointed about the Harry Potter thing myself. I'm waiting, Subicio, so I can go. Ivan says if Peacock wants to compete, it needs a Super Mario show. I'm sure they're probably talking about it. Here. I was just saying that we should give the Max brand time to establish itself. That would be nice. I hope it works out, but I don't like the blue. I think it looks like every other streaming service. So I'm not a fan of that branding. But I hope it works out. I mean, I love the HBO content, and I will certainly continue to watch this stuff. But do I see myself going beyond the homepage? Probably not. I don't do that on any streaming service. I know what I want to watch, and I watch it. Although I'm in a different space than some of you guys because I watch stuff in advance. So I'm usually on my screener app, and so I'm not in here as much. So that's, kind of the situation as well. All right, everybody, I had a wonderful time with you as always. There will not be a live stream tomorrow. There will be my Renfield review tomorrow, and the next live stream will be on Friday. All right? See you all soon. Bye. Bye-bye. And the Mandalorian breakdown will go up late this evening. Okay, everybody. Bye. Bye-bye.